I couldn't get my head around it. I just didn't understand how there could not be an inquiry. I was involved. I wanted it, and we know why we didn't get it. What happened there that day, people will say to you, well, do you want the truth or the official version? I can give you the truth, but it differs from the official version. And that's very, very, very concerning when 35 people lost their lives. The truth is different to the official version. That's a concern that is still with me 23 years later.
Welcome to the Wasp Files. Some of this material may be distressing and viewer discretion is advised.
In the immediate days after, do you have much recollection of where you were, who you were with?
The night of what is known as the Port Arthur Massacre, the Sunday the 28th, that night, I wasn't, people didn't want me at home on my own that night. So another of my work colleagues, Maria Kingston, who was one of the managers that was up the East Coast that particular day, she took me back to her place. Now, in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best house to be in that particular night, and I'll explain why. But my own place that night, well, I don't know that it wouldn't have been any worse. Remembering that Ian Kingston was the security officer down there, and Ian was also very heavily involved with Volunteer Fire Brigade and also the local SES. He was in charge of that. So if there was going to be a liaison place or a phone number to contact or a person to contact, it was going to be Ian at his house. Not that he spent much time there that night, to my recollection. I would hear later that most of his time was still down on site and at various other areas around the site as well. SES was naturally in full swing, Fire Brigade in full swing, so he coordinating all of that. So there was a lot of movement and noise in the house. I couldn't sleep naturally, so I had the TV going, and let's just say it was like the Today program that we see, Channel 9 and Channel 7 Sunrise. It was like that, just 24 hours. That's all it was. They had those television stations had people on the ground. They were at Turena. They was sanctioned off there. They couldn't get any further at the time. And so it was all over the TV and it was just everywhere. That was that night. I wanted to get out of it. I phoned a friend of mine that lived at Turena, almost on top of where the media were stationed off. And he came and got me. We got 2 litres of milk from the Turena bakery and got back to my place. And it was a deathly silent house, but it was when I was there on my own anyway. But for some reason, it was just that emptier. You could feel it was empty.
So he dropped you off, and
he dropped me, stayed with me there, and my family were trying to get in to Tasmania as quick as possible. Majority would have heard that evening, so it's like, all roads lead to the MCG on grand final day. Well, all roads, all planes, all everything lead to Hobart, to the Tasman Peninsula. So families trying to get in, I think there was almost the code word that they could use. This is tongue in cheek about immediate family, and you kind of sort of got to sit at the pointy end of the plane, and you were looked after by. You couldn't comprehend what Qantas did for family and friends at that particular time. They just opened up their company and their planes, and you didn't get charged, and you just didn't get anything. You got, what's the word, ushered into Qantas lounges, and it was just what Qantas did. You just more than what the government did for us, put it that way. And whether Qantas is owned by the government, well, maybe they should take a few lessons. But for many, many, many months and years, Qantas was there, always there. I'd leave Tasmania to go home. We'd go to Melbourne. The late later on, after when we went over to Nanette and the two little girls' funerals, everything was just done. So my family were there immediately after. Like, parents arrived the next day. More rest of the family would come in preceding days, and mates from school. I think there was 9 asleep on the lounge room floor the night of the funeral. So that just tells you what my house was like. There was a lot of organising was going to happen. I opted, along with a small discussion from one of the general practitioners, Pam Ireland. She said to me that, you've seen enough down there. I'll understand if you want to come and identify the body, or I will formally identify on your behalf. And I said, I don't want to see. I've seen Elizabeth dead. I don't want to see her again dead. I know I've got that vision in my mind. I'm going to have it forever. I'll go with that. And she was formally identified by one of the general practitioners on the peninsula, and that was something else that didn't have to be done, or wasn't exposed to. There would be then the organising of a funeral, and I've never done it before. When you bury your mother or your father or your grandmother, it kind of sort of the pecking order, from the eldest child, and or the immediate spouse, the immediate siblings, do the organising. But this was going to be a bit different. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to sit back in the corner and have it organised around me. I'll let it roll, and we'll just see. Because by God, there was a lot of bloody chiefs in that room that day. There were chiefs everywhere. And my interpretation of what would happen that day, it would be me and Sue and John Burgess. It was yes, I would incorporate Elizabeth's parents, but it's, basically, I know it's your daughter, but I think the spouse outranks. Pretty ordinary terminology, but that's what I was expecting would happen. Anything and everything that Don and Nancy wanted that day of the funeral was going to happen, until songs were being picked, and then I just saw red. You've got to have songs for people. You don't have to have songs for people to sing at a funeral. If that's the only reason they are coming to a funeral to sing songs, well, excuse me, wrong. We've got 2 young girls who didn't attend church. So the traditional Catholic, Presbyterian, whatever, it's just going to be a different sort of scenario. The prayers and speeches were chosen. The people to do the to speak about the girls were both chosen, and did it just a sterling job. You couldn't imagine getting up and talking at a funeral about 2 young girls, and this particular one of the guys that did it, he would later speak at another funeral, and word had filtered back to me that he made the comment that he was a school teacher and a principal, and this is one of the hardest parts of teaching, when you get asked to do this on a number of occasions. But the songs that we would pick, it was going to be basically I would have one, Sue and John would pick one, and then there was going to be a third. which I knew what was going to be, and I was going to make sure it was that, and there was going to be no ifs about it. And one of Elizabeth's favourite songs was Cat Stevens' "Where Did the Children Play?" because Elizabeth really loved children, and it was all about the children. Children first, children second, and third, and I'll sort myself out later. So that song was just really appropriate for the funeral. And John and Sue had chosen one of Nicole's favourite songs, and it was "Kiss from a Rose" from Seal. There was somewhere in the vicinity of 1,200 people turned up to the funeral for these two girls. So you're looking at, I'd say there would have been the whole peninsula. Anyone that could physically get themselves or be gotten there were there. Who provided the minibuses, I don't know, but the parking, they were that far away that they were literally running a minibus to the back of the last car to ferry people probably towards a kilometre, maybe not a kilometre, but that's just what it was like. And the funeral came and went very, very quickly. It was quite a beautiful show. His offers got rearranged, and he was pretty lucky he didn't get rearranged as well. So there was going to be problems when you're getting sent to specialists by government departments in the aftermath of what had happened, and somebody asks you on a professional question, professional level, your marital status. So who knew what was going on? Like, okay, it's bigger than Ben-Hur. We don't know what to do. But shit, if you're a doctor and you're going to see a patient, okay, Stephen Howard, I'm doing a report. Oh, fuck, we're doing a report from Port Arthur. Shit, he lost his wife. Fuck. Yeah, right. But we don't even have time to read that. There's going to be some issues here, isn't there? And then I can go and see Dr. Say, now, doctor, I'm here privately today, not RBF, so just, I don't know what folder you got to write in, and I'm not sure about that, but yeah. And then you can drive yourself back to the peninsula and go, well, this is good, isn't it?
How did you find Dr. Sale? How did you find his
Oh, look, at
treatment?
first I thought, well, there was no treatment. It was shit. If you could have made a lot of money if you had today as what's known as the date rate, Rohypnol, because you go in, can't sleep, Rohypnol, 3 repeats. You go up for can't sleep, another script, Rohypnol, 3 repeats, 2 repeats, and antidepressants. I think Arapax was there were every one on the market at that stage. It was a cocktail of antidepressants and Rohypnol. So other medication there, and then throw alcohol into the mix as well. So it was a treatment was there wasn't really any treatment. It was more of a procedure than treatment. Antidepressants, sleeping tablets, and 45 minutes with a doctor to work you through what happened that day.
When did you become aware that the judicial side of what took place there didn't seem too interested in what you were going through or had to say?
Look, we were all interviewed by the police in the very, very quickly the preceding days after the massacre, and statements were taken. I was very confident I would never get called to court if and when witnesses were called. There would have been so many people that physically saw him inside the building, saw him outside the building. I was pretty confident I would never get called as a witness. And as it worked out, that happened. That letter came that you won't be required. I think there was, maybe half a dozen people that I knew may get called. I can't remember. I remember my statement. I remember giving my statement, I remember my statement coming back to me, and there was a lot missing. I found that interesting. I thought if you gave a statement to the police, that the juicy bits weren't just picked out and the rest left. I thought your statement was your statement. And to this day, I wonder why, however long it was, I really can't remember. Say it was 3 pages handwritten by a detective, comes back in a page and a paragraph. So there was a lot missing, but I didn't think much of it at that stage. Once Martin Bryant pleaded guilty, it didn't matter what we said, because that was it. He pleaded guilty. You don't need to hear it. We know it. Damien Bugg had a beautifully constructed novel written up for him, and him and Nick Perks read it out over X amount of hours, and that was the end. That was court. And I would later question or wonder, when it came to the workers' compensation and the final settlement of all this, that Port Arthur are washing their hands of Stephen Howard, and I the same, and you're in with your lawyer, and he had a barrister with him up against RBF and their lawyers and government, whatever's, and the threat of taking this to court. You try and take this to court, the cost that will come upon you, it'll be a month or more. So hang on. So Martin Bryant's killed 35 people and he's out in 12 hours of court. He's murdered 35, all the other crimes that he was charged with, and he has, I think, 6 hours in court. And my workers' compensation is going to take a month. And if I do go, I'm going to lose. All right. Okay. So
How much did they offer you?
for Stephen Howard to wash his hands of Port Arthur Historic Site, the Tasmanian government, for me to be compensated for the rest of my life at 27, I've been retired on the grounds of ill health, never to work again. I was given $70,000.
And what did you say to that when that offer was made?
My lawyer and barrister and I went to another room. They did jack it up, if we want to call it jacked up, to 135, which to me was still a few zeros short if you watch you look at money getting handed out at times in court. And 135 was put across the table. It was sent back as 70, and that was it. So for everything that happened to me that day, retired on the grounds of ill health, so I guess I'm on disability pension for the rest of my life. 70,000.
As a government employee
Yep.
of the site.
Yeah, for what happened that day.
Were you aware of that Coroner Ian Madison had attempted to start a coronial inquest, but that never was completed?
I did hear his name thrown around and what he was doing. The minute any of us, when I say us, it's the employees, the people on the ground there that day, the minute anyone said anything about coronial inquiry, it was Royal Commission. It was just smashed out of the park. Not going to happen. Will not happen. And I remember to this day, and I can still see the picture just so clearly, when Judy Tierney was interviewing myself and Wendy up there in Hobart. And Wendy and I just thought it was just with Judy Tierney. We were not expecting to go home, put it on the TV, and Judy Tierney's state show would all of a sudden roll into Kerry O'Brien's Four Corners. So it was a little bit bigger publicity than we had originally expected, and wasn't to know that Kerry O'Brien was going to interview Ray Groom, and I thought this would be interesting. This would be a puppet string. Kerry O'Brien had him on toast. could have hung, drawn, and quartered him. He did not know where to go. And typical government ABC, it was just stopped. Stephen Howard, you know Stephen Howard, this is Kerry O'Brien. He's asking for the coronial inquiry. It would just be a rake over the coals. I met Stephen. I know Stephen. Well, that's a lie. He doesn't know me. He was introduced to me in passing, but there was no, I know him. A rake of the coals. So every time I'm at a backyard barbecue or at an open fire, you see the coals getting raked. Well, Ray Groom just said it'd be a rake over of the coals. The people involved don't want it. I was involved. I wanted it, and we know why we didn't get it.
And this was in relation to the health and safety issues at the site.
The door was the big problem. The door had a faulty lock mechanism. Well, we know that, right? Know that, yeah. But what are you going to do about it? How is there a building that's got a locked door in it? How have we got a building that's got a faulty lock mechanism? Did the Tasman Council have to go and do an inspection on that building like any other building? You build a house, it's got to get inspected. You do some changes on your building up there in town, I bet it's got to be inspected. Why can we have a building gutted from the inside and refurbished and we don't need to inspect it? I can't to this day get my head around that. Why we can have a locked door, broken whatever, like who cares what the guns, not the locksmith in town said. I knew it was broken. I knew it didn't work. Why wasn't it fixed?
You received a letter from the coroner, Ian Madison. What was that letter about?
Any proposed inquiry was just not going to happen. I couldn't get my head around it. I just didn't understand how there could not be an inquiry into what had happened. That regardless of how people lost their lives that day, and you can never understand it, but why was there no inquiry to what had happened? Official inquiry. What happened there that day, people will say to you. So what did happen down there today? Well, do you want the truth or the official version? And if that's the answer that you can give, that's a bit concerning. I can give you the truth, but it differs from the official version. And that's very, very, very concerning when 35 people lost their lives, 20 in one building. That the truth is different to the official version. That's a concern. A concern that is still with me 23 years later. And don't get me wrong, I've used firearms. I don't have any issue with people that use firearms, whether it being the policeman or the property owner. I've said this from the very beginning, possibly even before Port Arthur. I can't see any reason why we need fully or semi-automatic rifles in this society. The farmers need. What do you need a semi-automatic rifle for on a farm? Don't explain to me. Great, I'll be happy to sit and listen. But do we need semi-automatic rifles in society? I don't believe so. The recreational shooter, if you want to have a cannon, great. If you want to have a 22, your choice. Don't think we need the semi-automatic rifles. And I still say that to this day. Did I fire a gun after Port Arthur? Yes, I did. Did I buy any more firearms? Yes, I did. I no longer have any more now. They all went. They all went. 3 rifles, all bolt actions. No, 2 bolt action, 1 lever, and a under and over shotgun. They're long gone, and can't ever see myself using one again. But people that do, I don't have problems with, for whether it's target shooting, vermin control, or well, it's vermin control shooting kangaroos in the paddock. Well, I believe that's actually illegal now. You to have permits or something, or the cull, there's numbers and etc. But I'm not involved in that. I don't know, and that's up to the individual. But since the 28th of April 1996, no one's ever been able to explain why a semi-automatic rifle is required or needed in society.
In the years that followed, can you talk a little briefly about what you went through, your feelings, how you tried to cope with life or dealt with life? And
There was a very simple way of when everyone went home. When I say everyone went home, your family went home, your friends went home, and people were getting on with it better than others. Prescribed medication and alcohol would become a big issue with me. Any amount of prescription medication you wanted, you didn't ask for. Well, you did ask. You didn't have to give rhyme or reason. You were just given it. As I said earlier with Rohypnol. Throw all that together with alcohol. It's not a pretty picture. I think the worst occasion was one evening that it was just a casual dinner with a friend and at the club, and I had a bit of wine that particular night after beers, and then had a lot more wine and was home and had a lot more to drink, and I don't know whether I made a phone call or what. I just don't know, but I woke up in Royal Hobart Hospital 4 days later. I'd lost 4 days. I wasn't unconscious the whole time or in a coma. I was just obviously that out to it that I don't remember. And this would continue pretty much on a nightly basis for around 2 years when I finally left the Tasman Peninsula. Left Tasmania. There was more. I owned more then than what I did when I arrived in the white Commodore station wagon. A truck had to actually take everything away for me, which was a bit better, I'm guessing, and relocated to Ballarat for a few years before moving to Wagga, where I am now. And there was a number of times that I went into rehab, some more successful than others. And on one occasion was to literally get off alcohol, and I did it. And it was a pretty big accomplishment. I accomplished a lot to do that, from an everyday drinker to nothing. And I continued work when I got myself back to work, and came home one day. I just had a shit day at work, and there was beer in the fridge. My partner at that stage was drinking, and I just opened a long neck and drank it, and then the other 2 next to it followed the same route very quickly, and I was back drinking again. It would turn into anywhere between 10 and 15 cans of beer a night, every night. And that's how I survived life, and in and out of relationships. A second marriage that broke down, until I knew again I had to do it. And there was a tablet out there that I was told would work, and there was no side effects, but I thought, okay. So I did it for some time, this particular tablet, and I really wanted a beer this night, and I had one, and I thought, I'm fine. Had another one, yeah, fine. before I knew it, half the carton was gone, and I was pissed, but I was fine. So I thought, this tablet's not really much good. And I continued drinking again and again and again until I really knew I had to do something about it. And there was another tablet, and I'm still on it to this day. And it's scary. I've been told it's scary if you try and mix alcohol with this tablet. And somewhere around 400 days since a drink, and about another 14 days on top of that since a cigarette. So it's been a big turning circle into a new relationship that's going along really well. I've always stayed employed. How at times I don't know, but I've always stayed employed through all of this, and life's very good. It's always going to have memories, and you'll never get rid of them. You'll never ever. And people have asked me, "Can you?" Yep, easy. I can see Kate Scott like it was yesterday afternoon, like it was the other sunny Sunday afternoon. First person as I walked past or walked near when I walked into the Broad Arrow Cafe. And Mick Sargent, her partner there, it's just like it was yesterday. And a lot of what happened in the 23 years after that, I don't remember. Probably a good thing too. But I'm alive, I'm well. I'm now 50 and in a better place than where I was years ago.
I guess I'm just going to pretty much finish up. I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you just want to say about anything at all in relation to anything that's happened or your life now? Or
There's I think continuing 23 years later, continuing and harping on coronial inquiries and royal commissions, and it's not going to happen. We all know it's not going to happen. Will the truth come out about what had happened that day? Well, we really hope so, but I struggle to think that if and when it does, that the people behind it involved will be brought to task or brought to answer any questions. That's if some of these people are still even alive today. The likes of how much did Ray Groom know? How much did Damien Bug know? How much did Ian Sale know? I don't know. And it's gotten to the stage that I don't care what they know. What's happened's happened. Will the truth get out? Well, let's hope so. And the job that you're doing may go some part of that way to get something out. But so many years have passed now, bringing Ray Groom to justice, as far as I'm concerned, as the Minister for the Attorney General and Minister for Tourism and Minister for Port Arthur and Minister for everything to do with any of this. Will he ever be brought to answer questions? No. And he's got to live with it. He probably does. Probably lives with it quite comfortably. Maybe not. But I don't think me getting my day with in court with Ray is ever going to happen.
plans ahead?
To be happy and stay safe. And that's enough at the moment.
Thank you.
End of story.
During my investigations into Port Arthur over the 8 long years, I'm very grateful to all those people that have come forward, whether anonymously or not, and provided valuable insights and information into their experiences, either indirectly or directly, with the tragedy that day. This is a general call out. I would like anyone out there that has first-hand testimony and evidence, preferably something they can back up, to come forward, and with utmost discretion and guarantee of anonymity, provide any information or blow the whistle on anything that they may have observed regarding Port Arthur. Your testimony is vital to the search for truth. Thank you.